20 best brawlers to get the Gadget Gear for, or 20 best gadgets in the game. Ever since the Gadget Gear has been released, I've had a lot of people ask me which brawlers are the best ones to get it, because it increases the number of uses from 3 per match to 4 per match. So the Gadget Charge Gear is literally broken on some brawlers and completely useless on others. So which ones are worth buying it for? Number 20 is Rosa for her Unfriendly Bushes gadget. Now, the reason why this is number 20 is because it's insanely good, but only on certain maps. With that being said, there are other maps where it's actually pretty decent on. All she needs is a little bit of bush. As long as she's on a map with lots of walls, then she can use those walls to try and sneak up on enemies. Sometimes no enemies will be in the bush, so you end up wasting a gadget, so having an extra use is really useful. Also, Rosa has the added benefit of Grow Light, which also utilizes this and can be really great on the right map against certain enemies that can break walls, and of course bushes. Number 19 is Bull for honestly both of his gadgets, but mostly his Stomper gadget. Bull's Stomper gadget makes his super way better, and there are some matches where you're unable to charge Bull's super very often. Since you almost always want to use this gadget whenever you use his super, this gear is incredibly useful. Now, Bull's other gadget, his T-Bone Injector, is even easier to use because Bull is a close-range brawler, so you might even use this after, 2 or 3 times out of the match. So either way, you're probably going to use this extra charge like every single match, but we've got to keep in mind the fact that Bull's actually not the most OP broken brawler in the game. He's actually not very good, so that's why he's only 19. Number 18 is another brawler that's also not very good. That's right, Mortis. Not very good, but this is a great option for him. And honestly, you can use this for Combo Spinner or Survival Shovel. It's just a great option for Mortis in general. Technically, you can actually get more out of his Survival Shovel gadget. Like, you can deal more damage because of just how it all works out, but it's not quite as simple as like his Combo Spinner gadget. No matter which gadget you use, the Gadget Gear is going to add an extra use to Mortis, and that makes him, it makes him actually significantly better. Pretty much either gadget is useful whenever Mortis tries to take out an enemy, and if you're playing Mortis and not trying to take enemies because you're just so focusing on scoring that Brawl Ball, at least you'll get value out of his Survival Shovel gadget. Number 17 is Bonnie, specifically for her Sugar Rush gadget. And this gadget is very important for Bonnie because her slow movement speed when she's in her cannon is just so rough. And also, it helps charge up her super. Not only does it help charge her super, but it's honestly just a good increase in DPS overall for that short period of time, and it can make a huge difference in 1v1 situations. Having a 4th Sugar Rush is so good that Bonnie probably would have been higher on this tier list, or not this tier list, it's just a list, if it weren't for the fact that her Crash Test gadget is pretty much useless. There are a lot of matches when you probably wouldn't even use 3 charges of that gadget, so yeah, just don't worry about that one. Number 16 is Maizy, specifically for her Disengage gadget. Maizy's super is extremely powerful, and it is significantly better if you have her Disengage gadget to go with it. You can activate her super, then quickly activate this gadget so that by the time she's reached the end of her dash, her super will explode on enemies and push them back. Being able to do that 4 times in a match compared to only 3 is such a big difference. Not only does this gadget enhance her super, but it's also really useful for just stunning enemies and making them easy kills, especially if you can interrupt a really strong attack from an enemy like Carl or like Frank or something like that. While her other gadget doesn't really compare to Disengage, I guess it's still a decent gadget even if you do miss with it because it's an instant reload, so, either way, whichever gadget you're using, 4 times is really useful. Number 15 is Rico, and that is for, honestly, either of his gadgets. The Bouncy Castle gadget used to be one of, if not the best gadget in the game, but ever since his multi-ball launcher gadget got buffed, you're going to get some major value no matter which gadget you're going to use. Multi-ball launcher can clean up pretty weak enemies from a distance, and more importantly, it can absolutely delete assassins if they get really close to Rico. And you know what? Bouncy Castle might not be the best in the game that it used to be, but it is still really strong, and even though you may not have 4 good opportunities to use it in every single match, it's better safe than sorry to have the Gadget Gear equipped. Number 14 is Terara, specifically with her support from Beyond Gadget. And this gadget is really strong, especially against certain brawlers. And with a 4th gadget, it can be incredibly overwhelming. Now, there are a few brawlers that can just clear out all 3 clones with 1 or maybe even 2 attacks. So against those brawlers, probably just don't go with Terara. But brawlers that cannot shoot through them will probably be struggling the entire match if you have them all 4 times. And in Heist, it can get insane value if you just happen to be able to spawn all 3 shadows and they all attack the Heist safe. What's nice about Terara, though, is that you will get value out of her Psychic Enhancer gadget as well because it's really easy to use, and when there are maps that have lots of bushes on there, having that 4th use actually is really useful, which means you're going to get double value for purchasing this gadget for Terara. Number 13 is Serge, and honestly, both of these gadgets are really fantastic. At the beginning of the match, when Serge does not have any upgrades or anything like that, he really heavily relies on his gadget to get him upgrade to the next level. If he's using his shield power, depending on the brawler he's facing, it can help out a lot lot when trying to get close to an enemy brawler in order to hit them. And since it's obviously easier to charge his super at higher levels, Power Surge is another really great ability for him. Both of these gadgets can be very effective even later in the match, so having 4 of them will pretty much never be pointless unless you just happen to be curb stomping the opponent and you never die once you're upgraded all the way. Oh man, I can't believe I'm including Edgar on this list, but he is number 12. If there's a brawler in the game that relies more on their gadget than Serge, it's definitely Edgar. He's pretty much useless without his super, and even though it does charge up automatically, his Let's Fly gadget saves him a ton of time waiting for it to charge. And his hardcore gadget may not help at first, but it helps him a lot by keeping him alive longer after he jumps on an enemy. Either way, you're probably going to be using these gadgets either before or after every single super, so having 4 of them is a huge help for Edgar. Number 11 is Sandy, specifically for his Sweet Dreams gadget. It is really easy to use Sandy's Sweet Dreams gadget 4 times throughout the match. In fact, if I could use it 6 times in a match, I probably would still go through it every single time. The fact that Sandy or your teammates might actually wake up enemies by dealing damage to them, it just makes it so that like you don't always get the best value out of it, even though you can get insane value out of it. I think it might be worth mentioning that 4 of these gadgets is particularly good in Brawl Ball since it's amazing on offense and on defense. If it weren't for the fact that Sandy's other gadget is like, well, it's not useless, it's just not very good, then Sandy would probably be a lot higher on this list because using that Sweet Dreams 4 times every match is really great. Number 10 on the list is Buzz with his Reserve Buoy gadget. Buzz can't really do very much without his super, so his Reserve Buoy gadget is something that you want to use as much as you can. Not only does his gadget help him charge his first like real super that will actually stun enemies, but even if he totally misses his super, the gadget can save him a ton of times waiting for his super to charge right back up. His X-ray shades aren't quite as good, but having an extra one can come in handy when you're playing on maps with lots of bushes. But either way, this is a great gear to get for Buzz. Number 9 has got to be Piper, specifically with her homemade recipe gadget. Now this gadget did recently get a nerf, but it is still very powerful because it increases the range of Piper's attacks, and it's so good at getting the last shot on a brawler that's already weak. But if you have 4 of them, you might as well use it to just hit a brawler really hard and force them to fall back and heal so you can gain some map control. I think homemade recipe is the better option for the 2 gadgets, but Piper does also have auto aimer, which is really good against close range brawlers. It's probably more important to have 4 gadgets of auto aimer than homemade recipe, especially if you're playing against a brawler that's likely to jump on you or something like that, because it can easily push them away, slow them, and then Piper can usually finish them off with their regular attacks just by auto aiming it. Either way, Piper's going to dominate from a long range if you have either of these gadgets equipped along with the gadget gear. Brawler number 8 is Brock for, honestly, either of these gadgets. Both of Brock's gadgets are really useful. He's one of the few brawlers that has like 2 gadgets that are just hard to choose from because they're both so good. Rocket Fuel can be used to destroy walls in a small area on the map and is also really great at just quickly deleting enemies, because if enemies are within range, you can just tap that and then auto aim and it will almost always hit. Then you have Brock's Rocket Laces gadget, which is really useful for avoiding powerful attacks. So even though you may not need to use this gadget 4 times in the same match, it's really useful just in case. Maybe you just need to like interrupt a brawler's attack, knock them back. Maybe you want to use it to jump over walls for some reason. Number 7 is Buster, specifically his slow-mo replay gadget. This gadget is easily one of the most powerful gadgets in the game right now. I know it can be totally wasted if you miss the attack, but Buster has an attack that doesn't really require perfect aim, so it's pretty easy to land as long as you're just gauging the enemy distance, right? This gadget pulls enemies closer to budget for more damage with his next attack. It slows them down and interrupts their attacks. Like, it's insane. Now his utility belt gadget is a decent gadget that's very easy to get value out of. Either way though, the gadget gear is pretty much never going to be wasted on Buster. Number 6 is Dynamite with his Satchel Charge gadget. Satchel Charge is like, honestly, it's probably the most unfair gadget in the game. Like even though you can easily miss with it, it's so broken if you get a hit with it. And it can absolutely turn the whole match around just by landing one of them. However, it is pretty easy to waste this if you're not really good with Dynamite, so this really comes down to your own skill with Dynamite. Even though this is one of the most powerful gadgets in the game, Dynamite may not be the first brawler you want to get this gear for. There are probably better options, especially since his other gadget is like pretty useless, but I had to put him at least at number 6 because of how insane this gadget is. Number 5 is Carl with the Flying Hook gadget. After all the buffs that it's received, his Heat Ejector gadget actually is pretty good, but Flying Hook is by far the reason why you want to get this gear for Carl. It can be used in so many different ways. You can use it to go and assassinate assassinate an enemy. You can use it to run away from an enemy. You can use it to quickly cover ground and then score a goal in Brawl Ball. You can use it to dodge attacks or be the first brawler in the middle of the map to get some early zone control, especially like on a hot zone, which is a very important thing to do. It is a massive advantage, and Carl's, honestly, it's kind of unfair. It's really good. Number 4 is Fang with his Roundhouse Kick gadget. This gadget pairs so incredibly well with his super because it disables the enemy from instantly responding to Fang after he dashes to them. The gadget became even more important when Fang's supercharge got buffed because now he's using his super a lot more, and that means that you can use a lot more roundhouse kicks. Aside from that, his Corn Fu gadget was also recently buffed, and it's honestly not a bad gadget. Whichever gadget you choose, there won't be many matches when you don't find 4 good opportunities to use them, though still, roundhouse kick, insanely broke. Now we got the top 3 brawlers. Coming to number 3, we got Shelly, specifically with her Clay Pigeons gadget. You need the Clay Pigeons gadget. It is so good, especially if you have her Shell Shock star power equipped, because when you hit enemies with your super, it slows them down. So what you do is you super, activate your gadget, and then you auto aim your attack, and you will just quickly take them out from a distance. It's insanely strong. Now with a 4th gadget, not only can you do that 3 times, but you can use her first gadget to charge up her super in the first time, and then she's gonna have those 3 more to like take out enemies and cycle through her supers. Like, it's insane. Now, I'm not going to pretend like her fast forward gadget needs this gear as well, because it's, I mean, it's not awful. It's just not very good, especially in comparison to Clay Pigeons. But her Clay Pigeons gadget absolutely puts her at number 3 on this list. And number 2 is Crow, thanks to his Slowing Toxins gadget. Crow's Slowing Toxin gadget, it's been nerfed, but I think it was at 5 seconds, then it was at 4 seconds, now it's down at 3 seconds. It'll probably get nerfed again. It's so good. It is one of the strongest gadgets in the game, and it is very easy to use since his attack really is not that hard to land. At its best, you can potentially throw down an entire enemy team for 3 seconds 4 times with this gadget gear, and that is just insane. Even if you don't have this gadget, Crow's defense booster will also benefit a lot from this gadget gear, and you do actually use his defense booster a fair bit in solo showdown. Usually you'll get around 4 supers per match though, so Crow can use this gadget every time he uses his super, which just makes it way more effective. Okay, before we go over number 1, we gotta give some honorable mentions. First is Colette with her gotcha gadget, so amazing. Then we got Stu, and honestly either of them are actually really great. I particularly like Breakthrough. Then we got Gray with his Walking Cane gadget, and also Grand Piano for decent for clearing like walls and stuff. And our last honorable mention is RT. Not inline. This is one of the worst ones in the game, but his Hacks gadget, really good. Sometimes it's an extra kill. But the number 1 brawler to get the gadget gear on is Squeak. And you might have guessed it, it's his Residue gadget. Nobody in their right mind would call me crazy if I said that Squeak's Residue gadget is the best in the game. You might not 100% agree with me, but you cannot deny that it is insanely good and is probably at least within the top 3 on every pro's list. It is one of the longest lasting gadgets in the game and provides absolutely insane map control. So by having 4 uses instead of 3, you're adding an extra 8 seconds of slow to the area of your choice on the map. Not to mention the fact that if you stick the attack to a brawler, there's pretty much no hope for them because they will get slowed and they will not be able to escape it without being very vulnerable from your attacks or other attacks as well. Squeak's wind-up gadget can also get some use, but more the times than not, you're probably going to miss it because, I mean, the range is so far away, it's actually kind of weird. But Residue, by far, that makes Squeak the best brawler to get the gadget gear on. So those are the top 20 brawlers that I would get the gadget gear on. And thanks to this video, hopefully you have a good idea of which gadgets are probably best for you to purchase as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Subscribe for more content, and we'll see you in the next video.